Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. The US and India release an interim trade framework aimed at lowering tariffs and deepening economic ties. Both sides say more negotiations are needed to finalize a broader trade agreement. Iran's foreign minister says US nuclear talks mediated by Oman are off to a good start and will continue. Tehran insists it will discuss only its nuclear program and calls for talks without threats or pressure. Thousands gather in Islamabad to bury the 31 killed in a suicide bombing at a Shiite mosque. Islamic State claims the attack as residents fear further violence. Trump condemns but does not apologize for a video on his account depicting Barack and Michelle Obama as apes. The White House deletes the post after bipartisan criticism over dehumanizing and false content. A man is charged with threatening to kill US Vice President J.D. Vance during a visit to Ohio. Prosecutors say the charges stem from incidents in January. Trump signs an order warning of new US tariffs on countries that continue to trade with Iran, citing a possible 25% rate. The move comes as US-Iran talks continue in Oman, with Trump restating opposition to Iranian nuclear weapons. A US appeals court upholds Trump's policy of mandatory detention for migrants without bond. The 2-1 ruling marks the first appellate backing despite widespread lower court opposition. The White House plans the first leaders' meeting of Trump's Board of Peace on Gaza for February the 19th. The talks, still in their early stages, are set to include a Gaza reconstruction fundraiser. We start this hour in Europe's defining crisis, and Ukraine has called for emergency assistance from Poland after a massive Russian attack on its power grid caused widespread outages across the country. The strikes targeted the Bushkinskaya and Dobrotivskrev power plants in western Ukraine, leaving hundreds of thousands without electricity or heating amid freezing temperatures. Ukraine's energy minister said restoration work would begin as soon as the security situation allows, while the state grid operator confirmed the attack is ongoing. Polish authorities temporarily suspended operations at 2 airports near the border, including Rzeszów, a key NATO hub for military supplies to Ukraine, as a precaution. This comes, of course, as the US, Russia and Ukraine wrap up talks in Abu Dhabi, arranging a prisoner swap, and a day after a Russian general is shot in Moscow. Joining us now is Glenn Grant, an ex-advisor to the Defence Minister of Ukraine and a geopolitical commentator. He joins us live from London. Glenn, thank you very much for joining us. Great pleasure to talk to you as always. The significance of this, is Poland going to be willing to help out here, and why Poland specifically at this critical moment?
First of all, Poland has been helping out solidly all the way through this crisis, and has also been helping out in terms of supporting with helping Ukraine get through the energy destruction, I think is probably the right way of calling it. And last night's attack was the biggest attack, and of course Poland actually can route energy through to Ukraine if it needs to, if Ukraine actually asks for it. So but Ukraine will just recover it as much as it can. It seems that the worst of the cold has gone for the moment, although Monday and Tuesday are going to be bad again. But then it looks as though it's going to start dropping off and getting slightly warmer. That doesn't mean we've got through the worst, but it does mean that maybe it's not quite so bad tonight, for example, in Kiev, as it's been in the last week or so.
Glenn, are Ukraine's air defences overstretched right now against these constant...
Totally.
Yeah, sorry.
Totally. There's not much else to answer on that. Totally. They're doing their best, and they are working hard at actually trying to change what they do and improve what they do. But you know, a lot of this relies on missiles that are coming from abroad, and they don't have sufficient for what Russia is throwing at them. And Russia is also updating and changing the technical specifications of the Shahid drones. I mean, I don't know if people realize, but I mean, they're even putting effectively phones inside the Shahids so that they can actually be used on the Ukrainian network for guidance. We know that Starlink has been effectively turned off for Russia, but Starlink is still working in Ukraine, unfortunately, for this.
And we're now getting in news that Russia's launched 400 drones and 40 missiles last night. That's the figures that Zelensky has just given. What do these actions say, especially during these talks in Abu Dhabi? And what have you made of the talks in general so far? We've, of course, seen a prisoner swap, but not much other information.
No, I mean, I think this highlights the fact that Russia is not intent on peace. That's the first thing. People who talk about, you know, peace talks. This is Russia is trying to break Ukraine. Russia only sees peace as being Ukraine giving up, and Ukraine is not going to give up, no matter how bad this gets. The front line is going to stay solid and keep fighting, and actually in many areas is actually fighting back quite successfully against Russia. So I don't see any peace on the horizon because Zelensky cannot afford to give in. He knows that if he gives in, then you know the country's going to come and get him because the general population want to win this now. They've lost too many people for them to give in and be dominated by Russia. They can't afford it. They know it would actually mean more death as the Russians would come in and kill more people in the Donbass.
Glenn, there's so much pressure on Zelensky now to give up territory, especially in the Donbass. Do you see him standing firm during these talks in Abu Dhabi? And as you said, is this just going to lead to further war going on into its 5th year?
I think the war is going to continue. I don't see that Zelensky can afford to go for peace because he's not getting the security guarantees that he needs. I mean, the security guarantees from UK and France are laughable because they're tiny, and America just simply cannot be trusted at the moment. I mean, we all know that Trump is working with Putin, and that's so blatantly obvious that everybody except the US Congress seems to see it. So if Zelensky gives in, I'm sorry, but that's the end of his presidency. He's out.
And just briefly, Glenn, we're just running on limited time here. I just want to get your analysis on if there's going to be a reaction to the alleged assassination attempt of that Russian general yesterday in central Moscow, and how you think that's going to play into these negotiations going on in the UAE.
Well, first of all, there's no guarantee that that's an assassination attempt from anybody outside of Ukraine. It could be from Russia itself. I don't think that it's going to make any difference to the talks at all. They will continue as they are, bumbling along.
Glenn Grant, thank you so much for taking the time. It's always a great pleasure to speak to you. Thank you. We now turn over to Japan, and the Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi, has attended a campaign event held by her Liberal Democratic Party in Tokyo ahead of the snap elections on February the 8th, tomorrow. Takaichi, riding high in the polls, is set for a thumping win in the elections, which would give her a stronger mandate to push through her ambitious policy agenda. Takaichi has pledged to make Japan more prosperous and safer. This comes as earlier US President Donald Trump has endorsed Takaichi with full support. Meanwhile, Trump and Takaichi will be meeting in the White House on March the 19th. To discuss the upcoming Japanese snap election is Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi, a former advisor to late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He joins us live from the Japanese capital of Tokyo. Thank you so much, Dr. Taniguchi, for joining us. It's always a great pleasure to speak to you here on the program. How does Takaichi's platform differ from Japan's traditional consensus in terms of its politics? And why is she so popular at this very moment in Japan? What policies are driving her forward?
The substantial difference is on many respects, but a striking difference from the past pattern is that she maintains that the budget for the nation's economic management must be the one proposed in the spring, not to be supplemented afterwards in the supplementary budget customarily decided in the fall to winter period. This means that Japan must leave the regime of frugality first to something like innovation and investment first. So Takaichi's economic policy is now being understood as innovation and investment first policy. On the foreign policy front, she's proudly saying that she's a follower of the Prime Minister, the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. So the concept of free, open Indo-Pacific is now being reinforced by Takaichi. However, Sunday, tomorrow, it's forecasted to be very much snowy across the nation. Wow. And how many people would actually hit the voting booth is a remaining question.
You mentioned Abe there very briefly, of course, who she is closely associated with. You were the former advisor to him. Into both domestically and in terms of foreign policy, does Abe's legacy still mobilize voters or divide them?
I think Takaichi is her own brand. She's no longer has to borrow the perception and legacy of the late Prime Minister Abe. She's on her own. And the fact that she's on her own actually is, it seems to me, mobilizing more people than otherwise.
Donald Trump endorsed her a few days ago. Is this going to help or going to hurt her when it comes to voters going to the polls?
It actually hit the nation's headlines across the nation, but my gut feeling is ordinary voters do not pay much attention to what the United States President does and says about the Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi.
And what is going to be a leading person who has eyes on this? Beijing, of course. What would a Takaichi new consolidated mandate mean for Japan and China relations in the near future?
I would say stability rather than confusion or confrontation, because China has to digest the fact that Prime Minister Takaichi is going to be here and to stay for some time. And Beijing must therefore deal with Takaichi. Interestingly, one has to be strong to strike a very good balance with China. So that's an important lesson Shinzo Abe himself learned. And I think Takaichi will be able to do that.
What does it mean for the broader Indo-Pacific? A Takaichi landslide in the snap election. What will it mean for other regional allies like South Korea and others? What are our attitudes towards those countries?
South Korean president has already made a very much interesting overture towards Japan and towards Prime Minister Takaichi. They played the drum sets together,
yes,
as you recall. And may I say to, especially to the viewers in India, that there is a scheduled meeting to be taking place later in the year between Takaichi and Modi, and this time it is Takaichi's turn to go to India. And I would insist that foreign ministries on both sides should work hard to make the stay as long as possible, to let her get exposed to the excitement and the warmth of the Indian people. And Takaichi should learn twice and thrice as to how important India strategically is going to be in the future for Japan.
Takaichi has pledged to make Japan more prosperous and safer. Is there thoughts that Takaichi is going to do that? Is there hope in her? And what problems are there?
She has mentioned many times during the campaign that strategic areas need much more importance and investment. Like, for instance, exploring deep sea based rare minerals. That'll take a substantial amount of government intervention and government investment. And so there's going to be what I call defense Keynesianism. Keynesianism means, of course, a degree of government intervention and government investment, but defense means that those investments should be concentrated on strategically important areas, also from the national security perspectives. So Takaichi's brand of economics is going to be a bit government intervention, government investment, igniting private sectors, investment into those critical areas while maintaining very good strategic relationships with like-minded nations like Australia, certainly India, the United States, Canada, and so on and so forth.
And is there anyone else in this election that people should be looking at, or is this a very much one-horse race going into tomorrow?
This is very much a one-horse race. She is a locomotive. She is the propellant, and she is the motivation that's encouraging lawmakers, LDP lawmakers, Liberal Democratic Party lawmakers, to campaign. But she's got an important ally at the most important line ministry, that is Ministry of Finance. And for the first time, like Ms. Takaichi herself, the head of the Ministry of Foreign Finance, Finance Minister, is a female politician, herself a legislator, campaigning for her own. She herself is a legislator, but she is a very strong conviction politician as well. And she is the one who is pushing this single budget regime, leaving the regime of austerity, frugality first.
Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. It's great to have you and speak to you on these issues. We'll, of course, bring you updates coming out of the snap election, which is set to take place tomorrow in Japan, as soon as we get those updates coming out from those polls. We now turn to South Asia and a developing story, and at least 31 people were killed and over 170 wounded in a suicide bombing at a Shiite mosque in Islamabad, considered as the deadliest attack in the capital in over a decade. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack. Funeral prayers were held under tight security as mourners carried coffins to the burial grounds. Security has been beefed up across the city with checkpoints and armed personnel deployed. Residents expressed shock and frustration, citing inadequate protection during Friday prayers. Furthermore, the government said facilitators behind the attack are being traced and injured victims are receiving medical care. Regardless of past lapses, authorities have vowed thorough investigations. Let's listen in.
ये जो इमाम बारगाह है यहाँ नमाज जुम्मा के टाइम जो है बहुत ज़्यादा रश होता है, तो मेरे हिसाब में एज ए इंतज़ामिया सिक्योरिटी लोगों को गवर्नमेंट को चाहिए था कि यहाँ पे सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइड करते और सिक्योरिटी की नाअहलियों की वजह से ये हादसा जो है हुआ है, जो कि नहीं होना चाहिए, किसी भी जगह पे नहीं होना चाहिए। मैं इसकी
हम कहते हैं कि बहुत बड़ा एक जुल्म हुआ है। इसमें हमारे बहुत सारे मतलब कोलीग हमारे रिलेटिव काफ़ी सारे इसमें जिनकी डेथ हुई है, बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा मिसर है इसमें हुकूमत की जो उनसे आपके सामने है सिक्योरिटी लैब से, तो लोगों की ज़्यादा आधारित एहतियाती होनी चाहिए और जितने भी लवाकीन हैं उनकी मदद इमदाद गवर्नमेंट को करनी चाहिए।
Zulkarnain Shah joins us now, a political analyst, joining us live from Islamabad. Thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a great pleasure to have you. First of all, how significant has this attack altered life in the capital today, just following it, and in terms of Islamabad's security profile as well?
Thank you very much for inviting. Unfortunate, it's very bad and a very tragic scene after a long time in the capital territory, Pakistan, and particularly on the religious basis. You know, the fundamental and the basic history of the terrorism in Pakistan, which is the country the last 2 or 3 decades from Afghanistan and the Pakistan situation. But last 2 to 3 years, it was very controlled. But unfortunate, it was a very, very tragic event. But in spite of this fact, if we try to trace out the roots of the religious terrorism in Pakistan, so it has a history after the Iranian Revolution, after the Afghanistan invasion, American invasion in Afghanistan, and the Taliban era, and the long history. The Pakistan faced a huge crisis and a huge paid a price for this terrorism, for the other party wars. But now the situation is a critical situation for Pakistan, and particularly the KPK and at the Afghanistan border, and the Taliban era, and the terrorist organization. And also, if you let me to say, in the Pakistan, it's a perception based on the facts that there's a nexus between the Israeli and some voices say that the Indian proxies are doing and facilitating all the businesses. So, unfortunately for the both of the countries, for the Pakistan and India, both are facing terrorism across the border. But the terrorist organization now it has become a business, and they are enjoying this business, and both countries are fighting with each other.
Islamic State has taken responsibility for this. What does it say about the current operations that they have inside Pakistan? Is the Pakistani government releasing statements in terms of holding those accountable enough? Are we getting any updates in terms of the investigation which is going on?
ISIS tried after Iraq and Afghanistan to establish their roots in particularly Pakistan border, but still there was no evidence. But now, if it's their claim, but after investigation it will be proved how much they have a root in Afghanistan and the Pakistan border, and what are the implications of the IS role in Pakistan. But it is the first, I think, first announcement that they took the responsibility for this blast. But look at investigations are continuing. Agencies are doing their investigation process. Within a couple of days, it will be unveiled.
Speaking to a lot of people, there apparently is there's huge tensions between the Shiite and the Sunni community inside Pakistan. How severe is that? Is that friction right now?
It was back in the history. There was a problem, but if you look at the history for the last 10 to 12 years, this issue has been eradicated. There's no conflict. Conflict at some time in the mosque and in the religious affairs, but in the only verbal speeches. But the link between the terrorism, it's not like that. It is a geopolitical issue, not a Shia-Sunni issue in Pakistan. It is a geopolitical issue. It's a geopolitics. U.S. interference in the Pakistan, India, Israel, Afghanistan. So now terrorism has no link at this time in the last 10-year history of the Shia and Sunni conflict. Because if you see across the Pakistan, you will find no riots between the Shia and Sunni conflicts.
So Kwan Shah, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here on NewsX World. It's a great pleasure to talk to you. We now turn over to Southeast Asia for our next story, and Thailand is preparing for a crucial general election tomorrow as officials in Bangkok carry out final checks on ballot papers and voting boxes. The vote sets up a three-way contest between progressive reformists, populist forces and conservative power brokers. The Progressive People's Party, which won the most seats in the last election, is leading opinion polls once again, driven by strong youth and urban support. But forming a government may prove difficult, with no party expected to win an outright majority. Conservatives and seasoned deal-makers could still shape the outcome through coalition talks. Adding to the stakes, voters will also cast ballots in a referendum on whether Thailand should pursue constitutional reform. The Milano Cortina Winter Olympics have officially begun, with the first medals set to be awarded just hours after the opening ceremony. The ceremony featured 2 Olympic cauldrons lit in Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo by Italian skiing legends. While some events like curling and figure skating started earlier, attention now shifts to the men's downhill skiing in Bormio, one of the Games' marquee events. Swiss favourite Marco Odermatt leads the field alongside strong Italian contenders. Elsewhere, stars like China's Eileen Gu and Su Yiming began their medal bids, while the US leads early in figure skating. Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.